business. This is the Quick Bite Podcast.
Welcome to the Quick Bite Podcast. I'm your host, Brian Klinger. Today I have a special guest on. He is a leader, an extraordinary driver of revenue, a manager of people. He builds amazing teams that are driving billions of dollars in revenue, not only in the domestic U.S., but soon across the world on a global basis. He's one of my favorite people in the world. I know you're in for a treat. Ray Hatch, Vice President of Enterprise Sales with Comcast Business. It is a pleasure to have you on the Quick Bite Podcast.
Thanks for having me. Excited for the launch of this great pod.
Awesome. Well, thanks for joining. We're going to dive right in. You know the rules. 10 questions. Let's go. What's the best piece of business advice you've ever received?
Well, I think, the thing that has stuck with me throughout my career is that we're not surgeons. No one's going to die on the operating table if we make a mistake. And so the career path we have chosen allows us to fail. It promotes us to try, at least. And I think in that mindset, much different than many other careers that we covet so much. I think that's been a good North Star for me.
Yeah, that makes sense. What are the top 3 qualities that every leader, in your opinion, should have?
Well, one, I think you have to have love for people. When you're charged to lead anything, a business team, a sports team, at the end of the day, leadership is about people, much different than management, right? Management is one thing, leadership is entirely different. So I think you have to have just a great love for people. I think 2, you have to be willing to carry the load. In a sports reference, if I'm a quarterback and I throw a good ball that gets picked off, that's my fault. And I've got to bring the team back together and we have to shake that off and we have to go out and take another play. And I think 3rd, you have to be willing to allow yourself to be shaped by those around you. Leadership is not just a top-down covenant. You certainly have to have a vision. Your team is looking for you to have, to shape the culture and the future for the business. But it can't be so rigid that those that you impact don't actually have an impact, bidirectionally back on you.
Sure. And how does someone aspire to become a leader? You may be a young person starting out, or you may be looking for a career change in your life, and you want to be a leader, but don't know what the path is. What does that look like?
Well, I think leadership is something you have to put into practice. I think you're a leader at home. If you have a family and kids, you can be a leader in a social group, a church group, a sports environment. And so I think if you have leadership aspirations, you have to learn, and you need, there's a lot of good training and education that you can go through for what I would call the management qualities necessary to sit in a position that oversees others. But leadership is something that you have to go test for yourself.
Yeah, that makes sense. So it's a learning opportunity, observing around you, and modeling after maybe some things you like and maybe things you don't like. But to your point, I love what you say about at the end of the day, everyone is leading in some capacity, whether you're at home leading a family or in your job today, you can be a leader. And then from what I'm hearing, Ray, it sounds like it's just a growth journey.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So how does faith play a part in your business life?
Yeah, I have to have faith in myself, first and foremost. Sometimes that's hard to do. I think every great leader that you study has experienced some level of what they call imposter syndrome, right? Some days you wonder, like, am I really cut out for this? And you have to fight through those thoughts and believe in yourself. You have to have faith in those around you. I think Mark Cuban once had a great quote that says, I hire people who reduce stress, don't create it, right? And that's about having faith in those, that are around you, that you can put them into action and let them go do their job. And maybe they will fail. And as we said at the top, that's okay. Yeah, that's an expectation. And so, faith is, I think, a big part of being in business.
Yeah, absolutely. And for the audience listening, I was smiling when Ray talked about Mark Cuban's quote about the people that don't cause stress on the leader. Because I might have heard that quote from Ray a time or two over my decade plus years of working for Ray and with Ray. And that's something that has always been it actually has stuck in my mind of how do I make sure as someone that is working for a great leader like Mr. Hatch that I'm not causing him undue stress, because they already manage so many great things that I don't even have purview into. But they're always trying to do things for the right reasons. And you have to trust that being someone that works for you, I also have to trust the process and trust in your leadership. So it's a two-way street. And that trust has honestly been earned over time and consistency in seeing your patterns of leadership behavior. And I know unequivocally that Ray Hatch always has his people's best interests at heart. And that's one of the things that I think is most endearing about you, not to try to, toot your horn too much, but it's true. And I do believe that's one of the reasons you've elevated to the position that you are in, having been here over the time that you've enjoyed this journey with Comcast. So, speaking of your journeys,
before
sure.
I think the word undo is really important because stress is due, right? We sign up for the heat of the battle together. So be transparent about it. Bring the stress forward. Don't hide stress, in the bowels of the business. And that's when it will become undue stress, right? Let's take stress head on.
Yeah, that's another big point, that it's about open communication and trust and doing it in not a complaining manner, but just in a thoughtful, compassionate way of saying, look, I really have these concerns. And then having leadership that's willing to listen to that and address them, I think is very impactful. So I know you cannot be the great leader you are without others having gone before you and poured into your life and spoken into your life. Who would you say is someone that's had the greatest impact on you professionally?
Well, I don't know if this will be a controversial statement or not, but I would say unequivocally for me, it's my wife. I could not be the leader in business that I've been blessed to have the opportunity to strive for, if I didn't have her at home. And filing off the blunt edges of myself, right? I think, she's the first person that motivates me in the morning, and the last person that gets to console me at night. And, without both of those, interactions, I don't think I'd make it through the day.
I love that answer so much, and I can relate to everything you just said in literally every way. And I think a lot of people will relate to that, Ray. And I think that's a blessing to have someone that your partner in life that can be there. I love the way you said to kind of smooth the rough edges and also be someone you can lean on when you need it. And that's an anchor for you. So that's amazing. Who's the company you admire and why?
Yeah, today it's probably SpaceX. I've been a big fan of space exploration and outer space. I actually had the opportunity in 1985 to go to Edwards Air Force Base and watch the space shuttle land. I think I was eighth grade, on a school bus, and so it's and we've had a great lull in space exploration over the years. So, again, thinking through, all of the things that we discussed so far on the pod. I mean, you want to talk about a company whose primary goal is to fail first and fast, so that they can succeed and do it in just incredible ways. I'm a huge fan of what SpaceX is doing today.
Yeah, that's a great, really landmark opportunity for the world, and the way that Elon has brought so much innovation and passion and excitement, I think, for that. And I was hoping that was going to be your answer, Ray. I know you're a huge fan of SpaceX. So,
well, everybody gets to live through different decades, right? You could certainly go back to any time in the early, 1900s and think about, which decade that you would want to be in. But, arguably, I'm certainly thankful to get to experience the start. I'm, you're bummed you won't get to see, 200-300 years from now because, the potential of that is so incredible. But to be able to watch this next iteration of space travel start is just an incredible time to be alive.
Sure, absolutely. So you mentioned something about how SpaceX fails and fails fast, fails forward. So that's a nice transition into question number 7, which is, tell me about a time that you had to overcome adversity and what did you learn from it?
Yeah, this, this when you sent this to me, this is always the tough one to think through, right? Because, A, what do you want to admit? Um, and, you like to, think about all the successes that you've had. But, it really drew me back to how I found my way to Comcast Business. And this is a few steps removed from that. But in the early 2000s, I had an opportunity to start a business with a few partners, tech business, an ISP, and we built that business for 3-4 years, and ultimately, there was a bit of a divide in the partnership of the direction that we were going to go, and my desires lost, and I was ultimately, moved out of that company for it to take that direction. Um, I guess.
Thank you, whoever that was. Thank
Yeah,
you.
yeah.
I'd like to personally.
We could go re-roll the tape at some point and see who was right, because I know the end. But that led me into, and I had young kids at home. I was, I had moved on for something I had, poured a lot of time and passion into. And that led me to an opportunity to work for actually the first 4G data company in the U.S. as a very early employee, to help build that company and and take that company public. Which, when I had accomplished that, it was when I got the invite to come, join Comcast Business to come help this. So it was, the step in between. But, that adverse time, I probably wouldn't have looked for that opportunity. I probably wouldn't have found it. And it's really a high point in my resume to have, again, moments in time and when you got to do really cool things. Building that business was a really incredible experience.
Yes. I mean, again, thank you to whoever that was that you worked with back then, because my family and I personally have benefited, as well as many others that you've impacted along the journey here at Comcast. But it also underscores, I think, a valuable lesson for the audience in that what may appear like a loss today, and you were in a situation where you had a young family and a young, marriage starting out and all of that, the financial burdens and pressures, and you're wondering like, what's going on? Is this going to work out? I think the good news is things that seem to be a negative really can work out for your good in the end.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah. So on a lighter note, what's a fun fact about Ray Hatch that a lot of people may not know about?
Well, I've done a lot of things in my professional career, and I'm very thankful, to have been adventurous, in my early days. But I think one of the most interesting things in that is I actually built and owned a commercial mushroom farm when I was 19 years old. And so I grew, by the ton, like, high production farm. I grew shiitake and oyster mushrooms. I sold them to Monterey mushrooms, which if you're on the West Coast would be a brand you'd see in the grocery store. Um, I had an opportunity to train under a gentleman by the name of Paul Stamets, who is probably the most renowned mycologist in the United States. Got to spend a couple weeks at his house in Oregon, and just wild, right? Like, but was super fun, really creative, something completely unique. It was something I fell into and never. It was not something not something I had searched out. It was something that kind of fell in my lap. But yeah, I was a commercial mushroom farm.
Wow, that is completely unexpected, and I love it. Thank you for sharing that. I know I'll share with the audience. Ray is quite the chef. I know that he's a foodie at heart, and he's, I've seen some of the culinary creations he's been a part of. So that's really cool, Ray. Though, thanks for sharing that. So, how much time does Ray Hatch dedicate to unwinding per day? And how do you like to unwind?
Yeah. Maybe more breaking news. So, empty nester currently at home. Kids are out and grown. And so it's the wife and I, and had my kids at a very young age, I think, and so I'm a big video gamer, Brian. So I probably play online video games probably about 2 hours a night. I'm not a morning person, but you can call me at midnight because I like to stay up late. So
same, I'm with you.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I like to, it's, you and I probably both a little ADD brain, right? And so,
Very much.
yeah, I've been playing video games all my life. Started out on an Atari when I was a kid and had just never stopped. And so I use that.
Good. That's awesome. I've had some other podcast interview guests on that shared the same love for gaming. So you're in good company. I'll share some of those names with you afterwards, or better yet, tune into the podcast and you'll hear about it. So Ray, what is your why? You're an incredible leader of great responsibility, great people, amazing businesses that you've built over the years, and currently now, I mean, you're running a multi-billion-dollar sales organization. But what fuels you deep down? What is that passion? Where does it come from?
Yeah, it's all family for me, Brian. I was an only child, but I had 4 kids. I was married at 18. I had 4 kids by the age of 23, and have 4 grandchildren today, and a 5th on the way here in the next 2-3 weeks. So, family to me is everything. I'm incredibly determined to leave the Hatch family in a better place on this earth when I leave than how I found it. So everything I do is a testament to them and is with them at heart. And I think equally, kind of again going back to one of the first questions, having a love for people, it's that's innate in me, and I have just a great love for my family and for my organization and their family. Because that's really all that matters at the end of the day.
It is, Ray. Thank you for sharing that. And thank you for spending some time with us here on the Quick Bite podcast. You're an incredible leader. Y'all, if you get a chance to hear Ray speak at a conference, or I know he's guest on other podcasts before, check him out, follow him on LinkedIn. He's doing some really cool things out there and has some really cool insights. And Ray, thanks again for joining the Quick Bite podcast. And for the audience, appreciate you listening in, and we'll see you on the next one.
Quick Bite Podcast is proud to shine a spotlight on Giving Kitchen, an incredible nonprofit serving the food service community in times of crisis. From unexpected medical emergencies to natural disasters, Giving Kitchen steps in when life takes an unexpected turn. To learn how you can help support those who serve us every day, visit givingkitchen.org. And while you're at it, subscribe to the Quick Bite Podcast, where leadership meets heart, and join us in making a difference, one episode at a time. Quick Bite Podcast. Bite-sized conversations, big-time impact.